Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Um, this is Allison from the Mother Speaks Tarot. I always say I'm sorry about the mirroring. I can't fix it. I'm doing this all from my phone. Welcome, everyone, here on Facebook Live. I won't be really responding to comments because I'll just be reading this through because I'm uploading this to YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. Please subscribe. I'm almost to 1,000 subscribers. I'm so excited to get there, as YouTube will let me do certain things after you get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm so close. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here with me. I'm reading chapter 17, really getting close to the end. Chapter 17 of Perception, the Two Yet One, Book 1. All right, so if you're watching me live here on Facebook, please share this video. Share this video if you're watching me on YouTube as well. And let's get this going. Okay, we're only 2 chapters away from finishing book 1 here. All right, so chapter 17, Run. I'll just go ahead and reread the last bit of chapter 16 here. So Mr. Martin threw himself onto Mrs. Martin. More gunshots rang out. Let's talk here, Allison. Okay. Let's do that again. Mr. Martin threw himself onto Mrs. Martin. More gunshots rang out. Sonny, get out of here! Oh, for crying out loud. It's get out of here, Sonny. Sorry, you guys. Yelled Ralph. Luna, run! Yelled Mr. Martin. Chapter 17, Run. This is actually the first chapter. This is where I began a long time ago. Plan C. Okay, 6:32 p.m. Friday, September 2nd, 2011. Plan C meant that the authorities couldn't be trusted. He had to get out of the city, and Sonny was on his own. But he wasn't. He looked into Luna's eyes and gave her the same look his father would give him when he wanted him to pay particular attention to what he was about to say. Trust me, Luna. On his hands and knees, Sonny scrambled to the trap door in the floor, Luna close behind him. He lifted the metal handle. Several strings of small white Christmas lights lit up as the door opened, revealing a concrete-enforced cavity below. He jumped down into it. The air hung cold, heavy, and stale. Come on, he whispered frantically and held out his hand. Luna took his hand and then hopped down into the concrete hollow with him. They heard someone push the credenza back in place over the trap door just as they started crawling as fast as they could down the tunnel that stretched before them. They also heard gunshots and Ralph yelling orders as they took off. Sonny, never having gone through this tunnel before, didn't know it would end in only a few seconds of crawling at another trap door. He turned around and placed his index finger over his pursed lips at the terrified Luna. Turning back around, he carefully cracked the second trap door open and peeked out. They were inside the empty shed in the backyard of the abandoned house behind theirs. After a fire 10 years before, the house had been boarded up. Perfect! Good work, Dad, he thought. For those of you who are just joining me, the thoughts are in italics, but I say he thought or she thought. And when I get to these little stars here, that's a change in perspective. And since I'm reading it out loud, I will just say change in perspective. Sometimes it's fast forward, but I'll just still say change in perspective. Okay. Desperately trying to see through her tears, the vision of her mother being shot repeated mercilessly in Luna's mind. She could only guess it was the Gold Dragon guys. Why else would they shoot her mother first? That's what had happened to her ancestor, to Don Manuel's wife, Isabel. Luna followed Sonny up creaky wooden steps into a small aluminum shed where they cautiously peeked out of the shed door. The sunlight was fading and shadows were everywhere. They heard the movements and voices of strange people in the Fredricksons' backyard. All the hair stood up on Luna's neck. She realized that she was shaking and that she felt as though she were floating just above her head. This was crazy. None of this could possibly be happening. "Oh my God, Mom and Dad! Oh God, what's happening to them?" she thought. As quietly as mice, they stepped out of the little shed into the empty yard. "Don't hear us, don't hear us. Please God, don't let them hear us," she thought. Half crouching, they ran to the fence and then slipped silently through the unlocked gate. Sunny grabbed her hand again and they flew down the street as fast as they could, farther and farther away from their families. They arrived at the neighborhood park and slowed to a fast walk. Panting, they spoke in between breaths. Luna checked her back pocket for her phone. The only things in there were her pink Power Ranger and her stick of eyeliner. The people chasing us," she said. "You wouldn't happen to know whether or not they have gold dragon tattoos around both of their wrists, do you?" "Huh? No, I don't know about that," he said quickly. "We just have to get out of the area, out of the city, as far away as we can. Then we'll figure out what to do next, okay?" Luna at his heels, Sunny ran over to the very back of the bushy area in the park into the shadows. Letting go of her hand, he knelt down next to a rock the size of a large shoebox and pushed it over. There was a small hollow underneath it. "So, someone's after you?" she asked as she flexed her practically crushed hand and knelt down next to him. She was slowly realizing that both families had reacted as if they weren't surprised by the attack. He pulled up a clear plastic bag. A cloth bag was inside of it. "Yeah, I found out today. Right before you came over," he explained. "I'm sorry you and your folks got mixed up in this." "Just you or your entire family?" she asked. "It sort of started with just me, but it's probably my entire family now," he replied glumly. "Oh no, the people who attacked us, it could have been him that they were after, not us. So, if I hadn't insisted we go over there, Mom and Dad might have been safe," she thought. She did her best not to burst into tears again. She had to keep her vision as clear as possible. Suddenly, Sunny was pushing something into her hands. Stacks of money. Luna shoved the 20s and 50s into her jeans pockets. She was amazed at Mr. Fredrickson's planning. "He trained us to be ready for Armageddon and blah, blah, blah," he smiled, waving his hand in circles for the blah, blah, blah part. Then grief crept back onto his face. "I guess it's probably come in handy now, huh?" His voice was barely audible. Did he just say Armageddon?" she thought. What the old fortune teller in Mexico had told her about her future, a future that would bring changes, came to mind. "Armageddon?" she asked. "Why is your father worried about that?" "I don't know. That's what I have to find out." "You do? Why?" Sunny didn't answer. He just pulled from the bag a fake ID and passport for himself. His fathers and brothers were in there too, but he left them in the bag. Wow, they are really planning for Armageddon or something, she thought. He replaced the stone and then jumped up. Holding his hand out, he helped her up, careful not to pull her too hard. Quickly, she slid the ID in his back pocket and then lifted his shirt to shove the passport into the waist of his jeans, giving Luna a glimpse of his rock-hard six-pack. Her mouth dropped open in awe, but he didn't notice. "Come on, we better get a move on," he said. They turned to leave. Before them, 3 large men in black suits, fedoras, and sunglasses stood in a row, perfectly still and silent. The men in black. "The fuck?" Sunny said under his breath. Luna was shocked to see the men, but felt no stabbing pain of fear this time, only growing rage as she realized that these men in black suits were the same men who had attacked her and Ming in Hong Kong, and now maybe the same men who had shot and possibly killed her mother, maybe her father too. She didn't know what the hell was going on with much right now, but she did know she was about to kick some ass. With a deep breath, she launched into a higher state of awareness. She was sensing everything. She could feel the immense power of her energy pulsing through her body like she was standing in the middle of a giant beam of power. She controlled her emotions to become dead serious. She already knew her enemy. She knew her strength and abilities, and she had become calm. She held out her fists, Wing Chun style, with a focus she'd never accomplished before. Sunny put his fists up, and then they instinctively backed up against the other. "They might have a knife," she murmured to him. "Huh? How do you know?" he asked. The men didn't give her time to answer. They rushed them. Two attacked Sunny, and the other one confronted Luna, sending a kick to her face, which she foresaw and dodged. She dropped to the ground, spinning and kicking the legs out from under the man, but just as the men had before, this man righted himself with a smooth, unearthly immediacy. It was weird the first time, but now it seemed weirder, even weirder. She glanced at Sunny. He grabbed the collars of the men attacking him and, with a grunt, pulled them back only to push them forward, bashing their heads together with a loud crack. Their sunglasses broke, exposing parts of their faces. Luna was wholly shocked to her core to see that. The men had no eyes, only shallow sockets. It seemed that the tremendous force with which Sunny had brought their heads together hadn't affected them at all. She couldn't stare long. She had her own men in black to deal with. She turned back to him, but heard Sunny whisper, "Oh, fuck." "Just give him everything you got, Sunny," she said over her shoulder as she stared the man down, attempting to figure out what the guy was going to do next. As Luna circled with her attacker, Sunny rushed his men, striking at them as quickly as Ming, but hitting with a power Luna had never witnessed before. He was so strong. He sent them hurtling down to the ground with one smashing punch to each head, and then again every time one tried to get up. One rolled behind him and tried to jump onto his back, but Sunny seemed to realize that. He turned, caught the guy by his shirt and arm, and then heaved him with a grunt in the direction the guy was already going in. The guy literally flew away into the shadows. The other guy took advantage of Sunny facing away from him, but Sunny seemed to know what that guy was doing too, pardon me, because without even looking, he back-kicked the guy away, sending him tumbling over the grass as the other ran at Sunny from out of the shadows. Luna had decided that the guy she was circling wasn't going to win, and that she was sick of waiting for him to strike. She rushed him, fighting furiously. Empty-eyed sockets or not, she was going to do it. She was going to beat these guys again, but this time with Sunny. She had to. She had no choice. She didn't know why they were there, why they wanted to beat her up or maybe kidnap or kill her, how they moved so weirdly, how they saw without eyes, or even how they were surviving Sunny's assault. But in this moment, she didn't care. She was going to win, for her parents' sake. Instead of punching once, she used both of her fists to hit the same spot, head, gut, and kidneys at least 2 or 3 times consecutively, just as fast as Ming could. In fact, she had put on her Ming, adopting Ming's fighting style and fighting as mercilessly and relentlessly as Ming would. Even the expression Ming always wore as she fought shaped Luna's face now. Using all she'd learned from Ming and Zen made her feel invincible, and she never gave the guy a chance to hit her back. Harder and faster they fought, as she and Ming had all the way back in Hong Kong. Luna and Sunny almost had the men beat. They should be running any moment now, but I'm not gonna let them go, she thought. But Luna's prediction didn't come true. Suddenly, the 3 men simultaneously backed away from them and lined up. And then 3 more men seemed to step out of the first 3. What? She thought. All of the hair on Luna's body stood up, and a strangled scream escaped her lips. Now panicked, she glanced at Sunny. He was gaping at them in shock too, but then his eyes narrowed. They became hard and cold. "God," murmured Sunny, "please give us the strength to defeat this evil." Luna blinked at the men and realized he was right. They were evil things. Because Sunny was obviously already acquainted with the paranormal world, Luna felt relief that came with a renewed sense of kindred spirits, hers and Sunny's. Now that Luna was filled with courage through her belief in God and fortified by Sunny's presence, Sunny's attitude became contagious, and Luna reclaimed her resolve. She refisted her hands and held them out Wing Chun style. She was ready. Change in perspective. Mudvayne's determined was playing in Sunny's mind, but he barely noticed. Roaring like Wes, he ran at the 6 obviously evil non-humans. Luna yelled her own war cry and ran beside him. With renewed resolution, Sunny and Luna fought like wolverines, ripping into the 6 suited beings in a fury. Striking, blocking, kicking, jabbing, tucking, and rolling. Sunny had never trained as part of a team before. But he and Luna fell into step, fighting the strange creatures like a couple of well-rehearsed stunt actors. One after the other, they deflected each attack with a certainty, giving them a confidence that kept them rolling. But all too soon, 6 instantly rebounding creatures turned out to be too many. One was finally able to hit Luna in the temple. She fell to the ground at Sunny's feet and stayed there. "Luna!" She didn't respond. She was out cold. Now he had to protect her and fight them all off at the same time. He'd block one more strike, only to be pummeled by 2 or 3 more. Oh shit, he thought. He knew he was in trouble and Luna was in trouble. He had to make sure they were okay. He fought as hard as he could, but he was being hit more times than he could block. They were winning, breaking him down slowly as if they were enjoying it. They didn't even seem concerned with Luna anymore. All 6 were focused on him. This couldn't happen. He couldn't let them kill him, and especially not Luna. She was unconscious. She needed him to win now. But as he blocked one punch, he was hit in the head with 2 more, hard enough to daze him. His legs gave out, and he dropped to the ground, covering Luna with his body and his own face and head with his arms, but they kept hitting and kicking him. No, he thought. The swooping sensation began, the maddeningly minuscule to the grotesquely gargantuan, torturing him. Gritting his teeth to bear it, he opened his eyes. There they were, the geometric designs, circles, squares, triangles, diamonds, and hexagons, connected to one another, pulsing in patterns in all the colors of the rainbow. He felt his power, as if he were in the center of a huge beam of energy. The pulsing of it became a rhythm that flowed along with the geometric shapes. If you did it once, you can do it again. These things are dark, like the dog, he thought. He envisioned his energy building into a hot, fiery roar. He could even feel it, the heat, the power. He closed his eyes, remembered the vision of his mother's face, and, with a grunt and somehow using the love in his heart to execute his will, Sunny emitted a bright flash of energy, of light and heat. The men screamed as if in agony. And then there was silence. Just as he had with the dog, he had used his living energy to defeat a dark entity, but this time he had done it on purpose. But just like the last time, he was left exhausted. Sunny passed out. Change in perspective. Luna's head hurt as she woke to the sound of men screaming. Then something slumped on top of her, something heavy. Or was it someone? Yes, it was a person. It was Sunny, she could tell by his scent. Barely noticing that her headache had suddenly vanished, she pushed him gently off of her onto the grass. He was breathing, but his eyes were closed. She sat up and remembered everything that had happened. Panicked, she checked their perimeter. No one was around anymore. She breathed a sigh of relief. "Sunny," she whispered, shaking him gently. "Sunny, are you okay?" Moaning, he weakly grabbed his head, rolled over onto his side, and curled up. "Sunny, you have to get up. We have to keep running." I can't run," he groaned. "We don't know if they'll come back or not. I think we need to go." It seemed to take every ounce of strength that Sunny had to hold his hands out. She grabbed them and pulled him to a seated position. Once upright, he shook his head. "I'm dizzy," he murmured, his eyes shut tight and his open palms flat on the ground to stabilize himself. "Do you need to go to the hospital?" "No, I'm just super tired now." "What happened? Where are the men?" she asked. "You fought them all off?" Yeah, that's why I'm so dizzy and tired. And you're right, we should go." "What'd you do to them?" "Long story. I'll tell you later. We really should go." A little dizzy herself, Luna stood up and then helped him to stand. He was as wobbly as a newborn colt. "Come on, Sonny," she said encouragingly. She put her arm around his waist to help him stand and then helped him along. He seemed to be doing his best to keep up with her. He had definitely been compromised. "Do you think they drugged you?" she asked as they walked. "Nah, just got punched in the head too many times. I'll be all right." As they hurried along as best they could, making their way on foot to a major street, she tried not to think of her parents, especially not her mother. She didn't have time for a panic attack or crying fit. She had to survive. She had to make sure whoever was after them wouldn't get her or Sonny. Luna struggled to keep from breaking down as she pulled Sonny along. "Please help Mom and Dad and the Fredericksons, God, please. And please don't let Mom or Dad or anybody die," she thought. As they trudged along, Sonny seemed to get a little more of his strength back. He wasn't leaning on her as much. "Feeling better?" she asked. "Yeah, a little," he replied as Luna spotted a yellow taxi rolling up the street toward them. "Oh!" cried Luna. She waved at the taxi with both hands, jumping in place. It pulled over right away. Sonny opened its door. "Where to, folks?" asked the old cab driver with a bright smile. "San Francisco?" answered Luna. She scooted over so Sonny could sit, and then she buckled her seatbelt. "Why San Francisco?" Sonny asked, obviously still exhausted. She looked back at him straight in the eye, the same way he had looked at her when they ran from the Frederickson house. "Trust me." Sonny lifted his eyebrows. "Yes, ma'am." Luna smiled a little. So did Sonny. Although she wanted to break down, she was so grateful that Sonny was there with her. "Should take about 2 hours to get to San Fran," said the cabbie. Luna noticed that he was wearing a red cardigan that seemed familiar to her, but she couldn't remember why. She also noticed that he seemed pretty chipper, considering he was picking up a couple of teenagers. How did he trust that they had money for such a fare? The cab pulled away from the curb and began to roll down the street toward the freeway. Luna looked out of her window in the direction of her house. She had never been away from her parents before, but now she was leaving them behind, basically abandoning them to dangerous people. She covered her face with her hands and let go. Change in perspective. "Luna," breathed Sonny, still so tired. Sonny glanced forward. The cab driver was watching them in the mirror and seemed sad for Luna too. Sonny unbuckled his seatbelt and then used a great deal of effort to slide over the seat to her. She turned to him and began crying on his chest. He folded his arms around her gently, as if holding a precious, delicate flower. It was so good to hold her, to finally hold her close to his heart. But the reason he was holding her was awful. He'd give almost anything to make her happy again. But what could he do, or even what could he ever say or do? She may have just lost her mother to the dark, just like he had. Maybe they had both lost their fathers today, and his brothers. His heart hurt. "You might be in shock. You need to keep warm." He gently pulled her legs over his lap and gathered her closer. She cuddled against him. "Would you like a bottled water, dear?" asked the cabbie. "Yes, please," she squeaked. Sonny and Luna both said thank you as the cabbie handed 2 bottles back. "No problem. You two obviously just went through something pretty upsetting, which I'm sorry to hear. But sometimes things aren't as bad as we think, and everything happens for a reason." Sunny realized that there was something familiar about this man. His voice, or the way he spoke, seemed to trigger some faded memory, but it wouldn't surface. "Do I know you?" he asked. The cabbie smiled, a closed-lipped smile into the rearview mirror, but said, "So, where in San Fran do I need to drop you two off at?" "Chinatown." They rolled along quietly for several uneventful miles when, out of nowhere, the cab driver swerved the taxi. There was a sharp squeal of the tires. "What was that?" both Sunny and Luna asked in unison. "Flippin' crackheads!" the driver exclaimed, waving his fist. Sunny looked out of the window, and all he saw was open hills and fields. He began to wonder why a crackhead might be out there when, suddenly, something heavy fell on top of the car's roof. He and Luna ducked. "Begone!" yelled the driver so loudly that the words rattled in Sunny's head. He and Luna both grabbed their ears. Sunny was now concerned. "Dude, you all right?" "Never better," answered the driver with a big smile. "I have my driver's license if you want me to drive at any time, okay, man?" said Sunny. "And have you do my job? Never. Now don't you worry your heads. Just relax, and we'll arrive in San Francisco before you know it." Sunny blew his breath out slowly and looked at Luna in his arms. "Don't worry, son," the cab driver assured Sunny. "She'll arrive at her destination safe and sound. I promise." Sunny nodded at him in thanks and then smiled at Luna again. She looked up at him with her big green eyes. There was so much gratitude in them for him that it broke his heart. "You really are a gentleman," she murmured to him. He managed a small smile. Here they were in a life-or-death situation, and she had found it within herself to compliment him. "Thanks, Luna." She smiled at him with her eyes. "It's the truth." Change in perspective. Luna had never been held like this by a boy, other than Zen, and was surprised at how good and natural it felt to be in Sunny's arms. Then she remembered something. "Actually, I have been held like this before. By Sunny," she thought. As they gazed into each other's eyes, it seemed as though they both remembered their clinging embrace at the beach. Now he held her a little closer. She rested her head against his shoulder. "I never should have let you go that day, Luna," he mumbled, sending chills over her entire body. "I should have just left my family to go with you." Luna pulled away enough to look up at him, her mouth open. He creased his brow. "What? What did you just say?" "I didn't say anything." "What?" she thought. She gaped at him. He really didn't know what she was talking about. "I thought you said something." "Oh, no, I didn't say anything." He was still so tired that she knew he wasn't playing with her. "But I heard that. It was very clear," she thought. His sleepy, hooded eyes were still so bright, even in the low light of the back seat of the taxi. His mustache, sideburns, and goatee were a little brighter than his hair, which was a rich straw blonde. It fell shaggily around his face and was just long enough to brush his muscular neck. The way his mouth was shaped, his lower lip a tiny bit fuller than the top one, made Luna want to kiss him. She wondered if his mustache and goatee would tickle her if she did. She was rocked to her core and felt dizzy. This day was just too much. She'd lost her parents, and now she was falling in love? It was insane. But insanity and me, yeah, we've been acquainted, she thought. Now it fully hit her that she was on her own and traveling with a young man she barely knew. "I'll definitely have stories to tell my grandkids one day, if this turns out well," she thought. She would find out what happened to her parents soon, but for now, she was running, exactly what they had told her to do, and thankfully, She didn't have to do it alone. Sonny blinked his brilliant eyes slowly. "Oh, Sonny," she whispered and gently stroked the side of his face. "Don't worry. I'm going to take care of you, okay?" He nodded, closed his eyes, lowered his head, and gently pressed his forehead against hers. She closed her eyes too, and they stayed that way, soaking up each other's presence in a kind of heaven in the middle of their hell, until they nodded off to sleep. "Here we are, folks. Chinatown. Took a bit longer than 2 hours because of the traffic all the commuters make and also waiting in line for the toll booth. Now, which street do you want to be dropped off on?" As she woke up in Sonny's warm embrace, Luna finally realized that this was the same cabbie who had brought her and her family home from the airport the day they moved to Sacramento. Wow, she thought. But there was something even more familiar about him. She just couldn't place it. "Right over at the corner will be fine, thank you," she replied sleepily. Change in perspective. 9:45 p.m. Friday, September 2nd, 2011. The cabbie pulled the taxi over as Sonny realized he hadn't worn his seatbelt the whole time just so that he could hold Luna. "Whoa, I don't even think about it. I just have this need to keep her safe and happy," he thought. He paid the cab driver and then opened the door, and the cool breeze surprised him. It was twilight and becoming chilly in the seaside city. Sonny realized that he and Luna didn't have jackets. "Thank you," Luna said to the cabbie with a sad smile and a wave as she closed the door. He waved back cheerfully and drove away. Sonny's heart jumped for joy when Luna took him by the hand and led him down several steep, foggy streets. Her hand was so small but strong, and the happiness she gave him by holding his hand, by just being there, helped him to go on. The walking made them both warmer, but he was still so exhausted. He wanted to go back to sleep so badly. He was even afraid that he might pass out again. "I hope I'm not hurting myself when I do the energy ball / flash of light and heat thing," he thought. Finally, off a narrow dark alley, she walked up to a red beat-up metal door with a keypad and a handset positioned on the wall next to it. The door looked like it led into a warehouse. "This is kind of weird. Why did she have the cab drop us off so far from our destination, and where exactly are we going?" he thought. Without putting much thought into it, he decided not to ask Luna those questions because she was so upset, and he wanted to be her pillar of strength. Yes, he barely knew her, but she had told him in the taxi to trust her, and his intuition was telling him that he could. And right now, he trusted his intuition more than his tired mind. Luna picked up the handset, punched in some numbers, and waited as the phone rang. "Hello?" she said. "Yeah, it's me." "No." Her voice wavered. "It's just me and a friend." "Oh, MIS told you?" Yeah, I'm okay." "Okay, thanks." Obviously fighting back the urge to cry, Luna hung up the handset and turned to face Sonny. "She's opening the door in a minute." "Who?" "My Aunt Marie. She lives here." Sonny stared at her for a moment. Nothing seemed to be making much sense. Someone actually lives here, he thought. "She doesn't like living where people can find her easily," whispered Luna, as if reading his thoughts. "That's what I was told anyway." He was about to ask why she might have been told anything other than the truth when the door clicked, and a woman's voice called out from an intercom. "Please, do come inside, dears." Grabbing Sonny's hand, Luna pulled him through the doorway. The hallway they entered was poorly lit and dirty. He followed Luna to an antique elevator, and they stepped inside. She closed the cage-like door and then pushed the button that was marked B. Sonny's drowsy mind realized that the B meant basement when the elevator went down instead of up. Luna smiled at him sadly but said nothing. Still feeling safe with Luna, Sunny now had a nagging feeling that he didn't know everything that he should about Luna's aunt. He and Luna were currently in danger, and her aunt basically lived in a hole, as if she were also in danger. "So, is there a reason your aunt might have told you anything other than the truth?" he asked. Luna looked at him as if confused, and he realized that his question was a bit vague. "About why she lives like this, down in a hole, as if in secret." Now she seemed, was it alarmed? No, not really," she sputtered. Then she seemed to change her mind about her answer. "Well, okay, you know how sometimes adults are overprotective of their kids and don't tell them everything all the time because they're afraid they can't handle it until they're older? Like, maybe the kid will do something that the parents won't like if they tell them the whole story at once." Sunny had been about to say that he didn't know anyone like that, until he remembered the talk he'd just had with his family about the dog, how they had kept the secret of the dark from him all his life to protect him. "Pardon me, guys." "Oh," he replied with a small nod of understanding. Yeah, I get ya." Luna seemed relieved that her answer satisfied him. "Yeah, that's so stupid, huh?" she added. "As if we're so freaking fragile, right? But I figured it out. She's an introvert. They know she's one of my favorite people in the world, a major role model for me. But I'm not going to be an introvert and live in the shadows just 'cause that's how she is. My parents are so paranoid." Her tone had gone from annoyed to miserable. She wiped her eyes and made a small whooshing sound. He still felt as if he had questions that his mind was too foggy to form, but she had been reminded of her parents, and she was crying now. He put his arm around her to comfort her. She leaned her head on his shoulder and began taking slow, deep breaths. Pardon me, guys. Sometimes when the heater goes on, it dries out my throat. Hi, Elaine. Alrighty, okie dokies. Oh no, now I don't know where I was. Okay, so when they reached the bottom, where the temperature was even colder, Luna opened the elevator door. Another large metal door, this one cream-colored and illuminated by one halogen light, stood approximately 5 feet in front of them. They stepped out of the old elevator into the musty basement where Luna set her thumb onto a scanner on the wall next to the metal door. A thumb scanner? Her aunt's not fucking around when it comes to security, that's for sure. Okay, better stay alert. Well, do your best to stay alert, Sonny. You have to, he thought. The door unlocked and then slid open on a track. A small but elegant foyer was revealed that led into a brightly lit, warm, and tastefully furnished living room. A slender woman with shoulder-length salt and pepper hair was standing in the living room in a white satin and feather robe and slippers. She was smiling sadly. Her arms were open. Luna kicked off her shoes and ran sobbing into the woman's arms. "They shot Mom!" Sonny kicked his shoes off too, and then followed Luna into the living room. "Oh dear, how do you know that?" asked the horrified woman, who must have been Luna's Aunt Marie. "I heard gunshots, Mom doubled up, and then Dad threw himself on her. Oh my God." "Did you see blood?" "No, but what else could it be?" Marie didn't answer. She looked anxious as she held the sobbing Luna a little closer. After a few moments, she looked up at Sonny. "Hello, ma'am. I'm Sonny Fredrickson." Sniffling, Luna let go of her aunt, seemingly a little cheered. "Oh, Auntie," she motioned to Sonny, smiling a little through her tears. "This is Sonny, my new friend." Able to look at her a little more now, Sonny saw that Marie was a beautiful, elegant woman who looked to be in her early 50s. She regarded him with Luna's large, pale green eyes. She smelled of Chanel No. 5, a perfume the mom of one of Sonny's ex-girlfriends wore. "Hello, darling. Marie Martin," she replied as she shook his hand lightly. Her worried eyes darted back to Luna, and she held her arms out. Luna wasted no time in flying back into her aunt's arms. "Come along, love," Marie cooed to Luna. She grabbed a little tissue box from an end table, handed Luna a couple tissues, and then guided Luna to an emerald green love seat. Marie motioned Sonny to a brilliant blue leather armchair close to Luna. "Please, do sit down, dear," she suggested. Luna's aunt's way of speaking was eccentric, like that of rich, worldly people, like intellectuals who spent a lot of time around a lot of people with foreign accents. Glancing around his surroundings, Sonny quickly realized that he was probably right about Luna's aunt being rich. Bright, electric lights behind large, stained glass windows created a breathtaking effect, as if sunlight was shining through. The white, woolen-textured carpet looked and smelled new. Well, Luna had thought to kick her shoes off, even in her grief. A Picasso painting hung on the wall above the large dark brown leather sectional, and a white baby grand piano was showcased beautifully in its own nook, surrounded by more gorgeous stained glass windows. Some of the decor looked antique. Every single thing in the room looked extremely expensive. Crawling out from under the love seat, a fluffy white cat jumped up onto the little couch and then onto Luna's lap, where it lay down and stayed, purring. "Hi, Endora," whispered Luna as she briefly petted the cat's head before going back to holding on to her aunt as if for dear life. Only the sound of cats purring could be heard as Marie held Luna tight for several minutes. Sonny sat there watching, powerless, completely unable to free Luna of her pain. She seemed to be using breathing techniques to stay calm. It was working. She wasn't crying. But thinking about what Lloyd had said about emotion being like water, he knew how much she wanted to cry and couldn't imagine why she was holding back or why her aunt wasn't encouraging her to let it out. His heart hurt so much for Luna that it felt as if it were bleeding. So focused on Luna, it took Sonny a minute or so to recall his own reasons to feel sad. His family. All of his family. "Dearest," murmured Marie, "please listen carefully to me." Luna sat up and focused on her aunt, her sad expression breaking Sonny's heart through enough to mist his eyes. "Love," continued Marie, "unless you witnessed your mother and father lying dead, I highly doubt they have perished. My brother is quite resourceful, and married your mother with complete confidence in her intelligence and survival skills." "But have they ever faced anything like this before?" asked Luna, gently patting around her eyes with the tissue. "Actually, yes," said Marie. "Before he retired from the FBI, your father was honored with several awards for how he handled a major shootout and for saving the lives of others as it occurred. It was a hostage situation. Didn't he tell you about that when he told you about MIS? "No," replied Luna, seemingly a little annoyed. Marie rolled her eyes. "Oh, Jimmy. Always so modest. That man never sings his own praises." "He doesn't, does he?" agreed Luna. "What's MIS?" asked Sonny. "Martin Intelligence and Security. Our family's private intelligence and security agency," answered Luna. "Martin Intelligence and Security." I totally read that as if it was Aunt Marie. "Martin Intelligence and Security, our family's private intelligence and security agency," answered Luna, as if everyone's family had such agencies. Confused, Sonny tucked in his chin. "Sonny, dear," said Marie, "I suppose I should confirm to you something you have probably guessed by now. We, the Martin family, have quite a large store of funds." Marie's cat lifted its head and seemed to smile at Sonny. Sonny looked at Luna. She just shrugged as if it was nothing. Sonny smiled and shrugged too. "Okay, that's great." Marie let out a throaty but elegant chuckle. Oh, you're simply adorable, darling, she told Sunny. Sunny blushed. He looked away so Luna wouldn't see. MIS watches over us, explained Marie. Our family requires 24-hour security. Well, tonight they fucked up badly, thought Sunny. That's how they knew about Sunny's house being attacked? Asked Luna. Oh, so it was Sunny's house. Yeah. Yes, they called me about 2 hours ago, explained Marie, to tell me that their outdoor cameras failed suddenly and that neither Jim nor Lisa were answering their cell phones. They sent agents over immediately after I told them that I had no idea what was going on. They found your house locked and empty, with your and your mother's purses inside, as if you hadn't gone very far. Who'd you speak to? Agent Fleischer? Luna asked. No, I spoke to another agent who said Agent Fleischer was out of the country on business. Oh, said Luna, sounding a little suspicious. When they spoke to your neighbor across the street, continued Marie, that neighbor said they'd noticed you were going to Sunny's house, and it seemed to be for dinner. The neighbor also said that his house had been the target of a major SWAT team maneuver that very evening. But it didn't make the news, as if it had been covered up. When MIS contacted the authorities, they were told that nothing had occurred, nothing at all. Then they attempted to speak to the neighbor again, but found that that neighbor had mysteriously disappeared. None of your other neighbors would even answer their doors. What? Whispered Luna. She and Sunny glanced at each other. Holy fuck, this is serious shit, he thought. A moment of silence passed as they processed how grave the situation was. Why do they, MIS, why do they have to watch over you? Just 'cause you're rich? Asked Sunny. Yes, exactly, replied Marie. She looked at Luna as if asking Luna something. Luna shook her head ever so slightly. Oh, pardon me. What's going on? Thought Sunny. Wait, Luna asked me about Men in Black before those guys showed up, so... She's seen them before, but those things were evil, and she didn't seem to know that until I said it, he thought. He was about to ask some questions when Marie spoke. Oh, well, said Marie, seemingly a little nervously. Moving on, then. Luna, dear, since you were small, I've sometimes had, and still have, intuition. Luna stared at her in shock for a moment, and as if figuring something out, she cried, Me too! All her sadness in her voice was gone and replaced by excitement, much like earlier that evening when she was sad while preparing the steaks, but then cheered herself up before Sunny could even try. I wasn't sure. I thought maybe I just wanted to have intuition, but now that you said it, I think I do too, she finished. What? Fuck yeah. But then why didn't she know those men were evil? Thought Sunny. That's wonderful, darling, replied Marie, chuckling. Yes, intuition. And my intuition is telling me right now that my brother and Lisa are alive. That's why I'm not quite as upset as one might expect. Marie glanced almost apologetically at Sunny, as if she thought he might be wondering why she wasn't crying. He nodded once at her to indicate that he understood what she was trying to communicate to him. I'm not always correct, she continued, addressing Luna, but at this moment, I feel very strongly that they are still with us. Don't you? Actually, yeah, I kinda do. Sunny hadn't thought of trying that. Excited, he checked his intuition. His shoulders slumped. He didn't have a feeling about his family. All right, said Marie. I know it's terribly difficult right now, but try not to worry, love. Always hope for the best. Don't give up. Don't ever give up." Luna took a deep breath and then blew it out. She seemed to feel a little better. Luna's aunt now looked at Sunny with seemingly forced mirth in her eyes. "Well, now, Sunny and Luna, how absolutely adorable. I am so looking forward to hearing about how you've become connected to our dear little Looney Tunes." Luna's mouth dropped open. Marie chuckled. "Looney Tunes, huh?" Sunny teased Luna with a bright smile. Luna pulled her mouth to the side disapprovingly. Marie pretended she didn't notice. She picked up a remote from the white marble-top end table next to the love seat and pushed one of the buttons. "You two must be famished," said Marie. "I had my cook prepare food in case you showed up tonight." Right then, 2 servants dressed in blue uniforms entered the room with plates of food. Each held a tray with green salad, mashed potatoes, rolls, and a savory-smelling chicken dish. 2 glasses and a pitcher of milk were included with the meal. The servants put the food down onto the coffee table in front of them. Marie thanked them, and then they left the room. Sunny was so hungry that he forgot to say thank you and just began eating. The chicken was delicious, and he began to feel some of his weakness going away. The cat jumped off of Luna's lap, and Luna began eating too. "Now," continued Marie, "before I get all the juicy answers as to why handsome Mr. Sunny is here with us today, I will get down to business, something your OCD father made me promise to do right away in this type of situation." Marie leaned forward and picked up a sparkling silver and pearl jewelry box that was on the coffee table in front of her and opened it. The cat crawled back under the love seat. "Because Jimmy doesn't care for managing money as I do, he entrusted me with his larger assets. I am also entrusted with Luna's." She looked at Luna. "You may be in need of the key to your safe deposit box and the card to your account in Switzerland, dear," she said. She took out a small steel key and a bank card from the jewelry box and handed them to Luna. "And for some reason, he also left this for you," said Marie as she handed Luna a blue card with the word Brayburn and a long number on it. Sunny immediately recognized the blue card. Surprise rattled him. He reached into his jeans pocket and pulled his card out to compare. He held it next to Luna's. Luna gasped. "Where'd you get that, Sunny?" "My dad gave it to me tonight. Brayburn was his friend in the war. Dad says he'll help me if I call. Brayburn helps people with..." He paused, considering how to easily explain what he'd just learned about his family. "With intuition." "You're intuitive too?" Luna asked. "Oh, well, of course you are. You weren't that surprised when those men..." Honesty playing on his face, he slowly nodded. His affirmation excited Luna. "We're so alike, Sunny," she whispered. A smile pulled one side of his mouth. "You knew the SWAT team was coming?" asked Marie. Sunny and Luna explained about the creatures, first 3 and then 6 who'd confronted them, though Luna couldn't bring herself to utter that they were dark or evil, leaving that part of the description to Sunny. Marie's face went blank. She studied on Sunny a little harder, and then an idea seemed to come to her. "Where," she said as if suspicious, "did you two meet?" Luna was excited again. "Remember that day you babysat me at China Beach when I was 3? "Yes," replied Marie as if in a trance. "He was the little boy you played with that day, wasn't he?" she asked. "Oh, yeah, that's why Marie looks familiar. I mean, she looks a lot like an older Luna, but I was really thinking of that day. That wasn't her mother." Her aunt was with her that day, Sunny thought. Luna smiled brighter than she had in hours. "Yeah! Do you recognize him now?" Marie looked back at Sunny. staring him right in the eye as if he was someone or something astounding. Yes, I do now. What the fuck? Why is she acting that way? He thought. Luna, dear, there's something that I need to tell you, said Marie slowly. Something I need to tell you. Both. There you go. That's it. Only one chapter left. I wanted to read them both today, but they're both big honkin' chapters. So just one today, and see you next time.